He fell for her, but she was never his. An unreachable love story that haunts forever. The moon hung low, casting eerie shadows in the quiet town of Eldridge. The air felt thick, like it was holding secrets, as if the very walls of the old houses whispered about the events that had unfolded just last week. Everyone knew Edward Stokes was fascinated by Charlie McKenna. But what no one understood was why he was drawn to her. She had that spark, that enigmatic allure that kept people at bay. No one could touch her, and that drove him wild. On the surface, Charlie seemed like any other girl. Long dark hair that swayed like a siren's call and piercing green eyes that could stare right through you. But there was something off about her, a flicker of sadness always lurking just beneath her smile. She'd walk through the halls, and people would close in on her, desperate to catch her gaze. But the instant they get close, they'd feel the temperature drop, a tangible chill that made them back off. It was like she was wrapped in a fog that no one could penetrate. As Edward watched from a distance one day, he noticed something strange. Charlie would often go to the old abandoned church on Elm Street. It was a place no one dared to enter. It stood tall but ragged, a ghost of its former glory, the windows cracked and the doors creaking as if haunted by long-forgotten prayers. Seeing her there was like watching a moth dance around a flame, beautiful yet heart-stopping. He saw her hands brush against the worn stones, and he felt a burning curiosity that twisted in his gut. What drew her there? Why do you always come here? He dared to ask one afternoon, the air between them crackling with something unspoken. Charlie turned to him, surprise etched across her face. But before she could answer, a loud crash erupted from inside the church. It echoed like thunder, making every hair on Edward's body stand on end. Charlie's expression shifted, her eyes darkening. I have to go, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Edward reached to grab her hand, but she vanished into that dreadful church, leaving him standing there, breathless and bewildered. What secret did she hold that compelled him to feel so deeply, so terrified for her safety? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But there was no time to ponder. The urge to uncover her mystery was overpowering. As he nervously approached the church, the front door creaked open, and darkness spilled out like an invitation. Each step felt electric. He sensed a presence, something lurking in the shadows, whispering secrets just out of reach. And then, he heard her voice, soft but urgent. Edward, you shouldn't be here. His heart pounded as adrenaline coursed through him. What is going on, Charlie? Why do you come here? She looked at him with a strange mix of fear and determination. You have to leave before it finds you. Before he could ask what she meant, the church door slammed shut, locking him out. Pounding on the door, he felt an unseen force grip his heart, squeezing tight. What could she possibly be running from? And was that presence now after him too? The uncertainty gnawed at him, leaving him wanting to know more, to understand the depths of this unreachable love that haunted him like the chill in the air. Suddenly, the eerie echoes from inside the church grew louder, and the walls began to tremble. Was there more to Charlie than he had ever imagined? As the distant echo of her voice faded, the question burned inside him. What truly lay hidden in the shadows of the church and in Charlie's heart? Edward's pulse raced as the echoes from within the church swirled around him, a haunting symphony of despair. He felt like a lone ship lost at sea, tossed and turned by the waves of uncertainty. Charlie was in there, and he had to get to her. He put his shoulder against the heavy door, pushing with all his might, but it wouldn't budge. Though it groaned defiantly, as if mocking him, the world outside grew ominously quiet. Eldridge was known for its whispers, but now it felt like the whole town had drawn its breath, holding on to a secret that might just unleash hell. Edward couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. Shadows darted at the corners of his vision, slipping away whenever he turned to confront them. "Charlie," he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Please! What is happening? What do you mean it'll find me?" Silence fell again, heavier this time, wrapping around him like a shroud. But then, in the suffocating quiet, he heard a faint, despairing cry from inside. His heart dropped. It was filled with fear, her fear. That was all he needed to ignite his resolve. He stepped back and kicked the door, bracing himself against a sudden surge of rage and determination. It had to give way. With a splintering crack, the door burst open, revealing a scene that tore through his heart. The interior of the church was awash in a ghostly glow, illuminated by swirling motes of dust dancing in the air. Charlie stood at the altar, her features pale and shadowed, as if drained of color. Shadows flickered across the walls, twisting and curling like serpents. He could see them now, formless whispers spiraling around her, hungry and desperate. "Edward!" she cried out, her voice laced with a raw edge that sent chills racing down his spine. "You shouldn't have come. Please leave now." "No!" he defied, stepping further into the church, his instincts screaming to protect her. "I want to let you fight this alone." "What is this place?" Charlie's expression shifted. The sadness morphed into a bitter smile, as if she was both grateful and pained at his stubbornness. "You don't understand. This place, it's a sanctuary and a prison. It knows things you're not meant to find out." Suddenly, a dark figure loomed behind her, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. Edward's breath hitched. It was as if the darkness had taken shape, an embodiment of his worst fears. Panic surged, and his feet moved before he could think. "Get away from her!" he shouted, charging toward them. The shadows hissed, recoiling from him as if they were hurt by his presence. Charlie gasped, her eyes wide, filled with a mix of horror and disbelief. "Edward, no! You can't!" But he was already there, feeling a warmth radiating from his chest as if a fire ignited within him. He launched himself towards Charlie, hoping to shield her from whatever haunted this forsaken place. In that moment, everything shifted. The shadows surged forward, forming a wall of darkness around them, menacing, closing in. "Edward!" Charlie's voice broke through the chaos, drawing him back, anchoring him to reality. "You have to trust me." He felt the world around him shudder, as her words painted the air with urgency. But doubt flickered in his heart like a dimming light bulb. Trust? Could he really trust her? Did she even trust herself? Suddenly a piercing wail echoed, shaking the very foundations of the church. He froze, heart pounding as the darkness enveloped them, an abyss that seemed ready to swallow them whole. Edward's world spun. What had he just stepped into? What were the secrets the church held, and how did it intertwine with Charlie's destiny? The shadows drew closer, and as he turned to Charlie, he saw a fierce determination reflected in her eyes. But then, in a chilling whisper, she spoke words that would change everything. "When the truth is revealed, nothing will ever be the same again." A moment later, the earth beneath his feet shifted. The shadows pulsed and surged, regrouping like storm clouds about to unleash fury. Edward braced himself, no longer sure if he was fighting for love or against an unimaginable fate that hung over them both. What revelation awaited them in this darkened sanctuary? As fear clawed at his throat, the walls began to tremble, and he could only wonder who or what would emerge from the darkness next. The very air thickened with a palpable dread, each breath Edward took feeling like it could suffocate him. The shadows weaved together, their dark essence pulsating with a feral hunger, as if they had become sentient. He stood frozen, heart racing, torn between the raw instinct to protect Charlie and the paralyzing fear of what lay before him. Edward. Charlie's voice rose above the clamor, ringing with urgency that sliced through the fog of his terror. You need to remember who you are? Her words struck him like lightning, illuminating fragments of his memories buried deep within him. He was more than just a boy consumed by love. He was Edward, a fighter, a survivor. But the shadows, writhing in response, only grew more menacing, drawing closer, dark tendrils lashing out, ready to ensnare. What does that even mean? He screamed, eyes darting around, searching for a way to save her, to save them both. The church is a reflection of our fears, she shouted, desperation clawing at the edges of her expression. It feeds on doubt, on fear. You have to confront it to break free. A jagged breath lodged itself in Edward's throat. He sensed her intention. He knew she wanted him to understand, to face whatever demons lurked behind those twisting shadows. But doubt gnawed at his insides. What if I can't? Then we're lost, Charlie cried, each word spilling from her lips like drops of blood. It won't just take me at I'll take you too. Suddenly, the darkness snapped forward, the shadows intertwining and swirling in a grotesque dance. Edward felt a chill grip his spine as they pulled away from Charlie, wrapping around him like serpents ready to squeeze. He clenched his fists, refusing to succumb to panic. Get away from me, he shouted, hurling his arm forward, willing the shadows back. A strange shimmer erupted around him, a warmth ignited by his sudden determination. The light flickered against the engulfing blackness, illuminating the space between him and Charlie. In that pivotal moment, he saw them, a glimpse of faces trapped within shadows, tortured expressions of anguish. They were lost souls, seeking liberation, yet infinitely bound to this dark sanctuary. Oh God, his heart sank. They were all like me. What do you see? Charlie's scream pierced through his thoughts, her eyes desperate and fierce. You're strong enough, Edward. Fight it. Tremors shook the ground beneath them, like a warning from the very depths of the church. The shadows recoiled slightly, sensing perhaps that Edward's power was awakening, that he was beginning to challenge their hold. But he felt more fear creeping in. Could he really confront this darkness? Your fear is your only enemy. Charlie's voice rang out, a beacon of hope amid the chaos. He could see her resolve mirrored in his heart, igniting defiance. But then, a thunderous roar erupted, shaking the church's ancient pillars, sending dust raining down like an omen. Edward staggered back as the figure that loomed behind Charlie materialized in all its grotesque terror, a twisted form cloaked in shadows, eyes glinting like knives. Edward. The creature's voice was a low growl, echoing through the hollow spaces. Would you surrender to us, or fight your own fear? The time had come. Would he give in, allow himself to be consumed? Or would he stand with Charlie, face the truth hidden within his own heart? With clenched fists and rising courage, Edward stepped forward. I'll never give up. Not on Charlie. Not on myself. But would mere words be enough? As the shadows surged again, battling against the flames of his will, he could sense a fracture forming, a glimmer of light amidst the onslaught. What would it take for him to overcome this insidious darkness? Would he discover the strength to liberate both himself and Charlie before the church sealed their fate forever? The shadows roared like a hungry beast, each wave pulling Edward deeper into their suffocating embrace. The air turned electric, thick with tension, as he felt the reality of his situation crashing around him. Charlie's anguished gaze anchored him, but beyond her stood the dark entity that promised to spare. Fight it, Edward, Charlie shouted. The urgency in her voice sent a jolt through him. Holding on to her words like a lifeline, He wrestled with the dark tendrils tightening around him. He remembered the warmth of laughter, the joy of shared secrets. When had they started sliding away? Those memories flickered in his mind, growing brighter. "No!" he shouted defiantly, pushing against the shadows with every ounce of strength he had left. "You want to take us?" The creature reacted, its grotesque form twisting violently. Its monstrous features contorted with rage, as if Edward's determination was a fiery arrow piercing through its darkness. The walls of the church trembled, echoing Edward's resolve. "What are you really?" Edward demanded. "Are you my fear? My past? Nothing but a reflection of my doubts?" The entity's laughter rumbled like distant thunder, reverberating in his bones. "I am every shadow you've ever feared, every regret that will never let you breathe freely. You cannot escape me. I am you." A cold wave swept over him as reality settled into his bones. No, it wasn't he just an external monster. This darkness thrived on his insecurities let loose in the hushed corners of his mind. "Charlie," he called out, his voice trembling. "Help me fight this. I can't do it for you." She strained against the encroaching shadows, but his desperate plea infused her with fire. "You have to confront your demons, Edward. Only you can break this curse." Gripping the ground beneath him, Edward felt the heat of his determination push back against the suffocating shadows. He let out a guttural roar that mixed fear with ferocity. "You are not me." With a surge of will, a blinding light burst forth from his heart. The shadows shrieked, curling away from the brilliance illuminating the church. Faces twisted in agony melted into the illumination, reflecting the pain he'd felt all his life. But now, they transformed into a spectrum of support. "I see you!" Edward shouted to the tortured souls. "You don't have to be trapped." Charlie's voice blended with his, echoing through the chamber. "Together we fight." The darkness howled in alarm as Edward felt the energy channeling through him. Each flicker of light in his vision ignited a spark of hope. The shimmering warmth expanded, pushing back the horrors creeping at the edges of their sanctuary. Then, in one monumental surge, Edward focused that energy, channeling it into a single point directed at the monstrous figure before him. "You're nothing. You hold no power over me." The entity recoiled, a veil of darkness shredding into wisps as the light consumed it, revealing the ageless stone and shattered glass of the church now glimmering with reflection. But deep inside the remnants of its form lurked a shadow of doubt, lingering and dark. As the clash subsided, Edward could see Charlie, her eyes filled with pride and hope. Yet a question nagged within him, an icy whisper creeping back into his heart. Could he truly keep the darkness at bay? The ground beneath him trembled once more, a warning echoing through the church, shaking loose memories he still hadn't faced. The fight was just beginning. Would he be strong enough to confront what lingered, or would he falter when faced with the ghosts of his past? The shadows, though weakened, were far from defeated, and lurking just beyond the flickering light was a far more terrifying truth waiting to be revealed. Where would this journey take him next? What new horrors awaited as he ventured deeper into the heart of fear itself? The air crackled with unanswered questions, a heavy fog pressing in on Edward's chest. He fought to keep the light alive, but with every passing moment, shadows slipped through the cracks, creeping back toward him. He could feel their icy fingers clawing at the edges of his consciousness, beckoning him to doubt, to distrust himself. "Charlie, do you sense that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, as he strained to ignore the familiar weight of anxiety threatening to suffocate him. She nodded, her expression shifting from resolute to worried. "We're not done yet," she replied, her voice firm despite the flicker of fear in her eyes. "You need to remember why you fought back in the first place. What do you value?" What did he value? The question echoed in his mind, pounding against the walls of his heart. It wasn't just the fight for survival. It was something so much deeper, something wrapped in the warmth of his childhood, the laughter of friends, and the tender moments he had shared with Charlie. It was love, but was love strong enough to vanquish this darkness? The shadows coiled threateningly, almost as if sensing his hesitation. Edward felt a shudder run down his spine, time threatening to warp and twist, as if the world was spinning ever so slightly out of control. The remnants of the creature loomed, a whispering echo of despair. "You don't belong in the light, Edward. You're a coward. You've failed, and you will always fail." "No!" he shouted, raw energy crackling in the space around him. He stepped forward, grounding himself with the memories of every moment he had lived for. "I'm not a coward." Charlie's eyes locked on his. "Show them, Edward. Show them who you are." With every ounce of strength, he concentrated again, drawing from the love and joy that had cut through his darkness before. Streams of light burst forth, igniting memories of sunlit afternoons, laughter ringing through the air. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the warmth emanating from within him. It was almost euphoric. The sound of voices he had long forgotten surged forward, cheering him on. But in the back of his mind, the shadows persisted like an infection he couldn't shake. "Remember," Charlie urged, slipping beside him, her presence a steadying force. "Your heart carries the weight of your choices. Embrace them." The entity shrieked again, its form clashing violently against the light. Tendrils of darkness lashed out at him, angry and desperate. As they whipped around him, Edward felt a flickering of doubt. What if he didn't have enough light to push it back for good? What if this moment was only a reprieve before the darkness found a way to return, stronger than before? With a fierce growl, he gathered every fragment of hope, every laugh, every shared moment with Charlie, and thrust it forward. But the shadows were relentless, creeping back into his thoughts, demanding his attention and imposing an ultimatum. "Edward, look at yourself. You think this light will save you?" The bitter whisper taunted. "You are forever haunted by your failures, just like I am." He faltered, the darkness clawing for his mind. He could see flashes of his past of betrayal, a missed opportunity, love lost without warning. "No! That's not my truth," Edward shouted, clutching his head as if to keep the ghosts at bay. He felt Charlie grasp his arm tightly, grounding him. "Fight it! You have to believe in yourself," she urged, fierce yet pleading. Through the chaos, as the shadows stirred with renewed fury, a realization ignited within him. "This darkness doesn't define me." With a desperate surge, fueled by resolve and longing, he unleashed the light trapped in his heart once more. The brilliance erupted and spread across the room like wildfire, illuminating the long-abandoned corners of his spirit. The shadows shrieked, dissolving like mist, as the warmth wrapped around him and Charlie, filling the church with their collective hopes. But deep inside the recesses of the dissipating darkness, an ominous laughter echoed, a chilling reminder that this moment was only a battle won in a drawn-out war. "Edward," the voice hissed, its tone haunting. "You may have banished me for now, but shadows will always return, and I know your darkest fears." He felt his heart sink. But even as the dread settled in the pit of his stomach, another thought flickered the light. It would persist if he chose to believe in it. But in doing so, what would he risk losing next? What other secrets from his past waited with predatory eyes just within his reach? As he and Charlie stood in the aftermath of their momentary triumph, the church filled with echoes of laughter once more, yet still, a shadow darkened the doorway. What lay beyond? Edward felt a knot tighten in his gut, unsure of whether facing it would be his salvation or doom. And as he tried to steady his breath, he heard a rustle in the dark, a whisper that chilled him to the bone. "I'm coming back for you, Edward." What was waiting in the dark? Would he be strong enough to confront it again? The answers lay just out of reach, teasing him from the abyss. A chill crept through the church as the shadows flickered and danced like restless spirits. Edward clutched Charlie, half expecting the darkness to swallow him whole. The weight of fear and uncertainty pressed against his chest, making it hard to breathe. Each whisper in the air felt like a warning, a reminder that he was not safe, not yet. "Stay close," he murmured, squeezing Charlie's hand tightly. Her fingers felt warm, a contrast to the creeping cold that enveloped them. "What should we do?" Charlie asked, her voice firm but laced with tremors. "We draw the light to us," Edward replied, his heart racing. He could feel the shadows stirring again, sensing their anxiety, like a predator circling its prey. "We have to stand together." As he spoke, he focused on the warmth radiating from Charlie. It was a beacon against the darkness, reminding him of everything he fought for. Memories flooded him, days spent laughing under the sun, evenings filled with whispered dreams. The light sparked within him again, brightening the room like a flare in the night. But that laughter, a mere echo now, was abruptly interrupted by a low thrum that vibrated through the church. The shadows writhed and converged, pooling together at the doorway, as if a mass of malevolent eyes were watching, ready to strike. "Edward, look," Charlie gasped, pointing towards the looming mass. "It's changing." Then, from the darkness emerged a figure, formed of shadows yet solid enough to create a terrifying presence. Its eyes glowed with an insidious light, a reflection of Edward's own fear. It strutted forward, its voice a smooth blend of mockery and malice. "You thought you could rid yourself of me? You think light can banish what is forever etched in your soul?" His legs trembled, but Edward stood firm. "You're not real. You're a reflection of my own doubts." The figure cackled, a sound that dug into Edward's heart like a knife. "Doubt is what you are, Edward. A coward hiding in denial. Embrace your truth. Don't listen," Charlie shouted, stepping forward, shielding him with her presence. "He is trying to manipulate you." "Manipulate?" The shadow-shrouded figure laughed again, and Edward felt pieces of his resolve crack at its sound. "I only speak the truth. You will always be haunted by your past actions. You'll never be strong enough to escape me." Terror clawed at Edward's insides. Every failure he had ever made replayed in his mind, a relentless carousel of pain. A betrayal here, a lost chance there, all coiling around his heart like a serpent. "No!" Edward roared, refusing to submit to the darkness. Drawing from the depths of his heart once more, he gathered the light and pushed against the shadows, an arm raised as if to ward off a blow. The brilliance pushed back, and for a moment it illuminated the space around them, cutting through the darkness like a knife. Edward felt Charlie's energy swell beside him, a powerful force. "Together!" she cried, her voice steady as she placed her palm against his. The light exploded outward, forcing the shadows to retreat, but as they did, the entity howled, a sound filled with rage and desperation. "You think this is finished? I will return, Edward. And when I do, you will wish you had yielded." With a final surge, the light engulfed the room, and the shadows screamed, dissipating into thin air. Silence crashed down upon them, heavy and oppressive, like the calm before a storm. Breathless, Edward turned to Charlie. "Did we do it? Did we push it back?" "I think for now," she said, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "But it won't be over until we confront whatever is lurking inside." His heart sank. "We have to face it again?" Charlie's gaze softened. "Yes, but we'll do it together. You need to believe that we can break this cycle." In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Yet, that same gnawing doubt lingered at the edges of his mind, whispering reminders of the shadows that had just retreated. And then, unease settled over them again, as an unnerving silence filled the air. Edward turned slowly, a sense of foreboding crawling up his spine. He could still hear that haunting whisper, echoing, "You'll wish you had yielded," what awaited them in the depths of the shadows? Would Edward find the strength to confront the truths he buried deep inside? As fear wrapped around him again, he braced himself, knowing the battle was far from over. The church felt different now. The silence loomed like a thick fog, eager to wrap around them once more. Edward's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing the words of the figure that had just vanished. "You'll wish you had yielded." The phrase burrowed into his mind like a relentless worm, gnawing at his resolve. "Charlie," he whispered, fear creeping back into his voice. "What if it comes back?" Her eyes searched his, bright yet troubled. "If it does, we'll be ready. You need to believe that. But the shadows may not have been gone for good." Something more profound lingered beneath the surface, and the air felt electric, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Just then, a sense of cold washed over them again, icy fingers sliding down Edward's spine. Trembling, he glanced back toward the doorway, the looming dark inside now feeling like an abyss. "Something's wrong." He barely spoke when light flickered in the distance, illuminating an ornate pew near the front of the church. Out of the shadows, a flickering figure stepped into view, a woman, wreathed in black. Her features were sharp, ethereal, yet strangely familiar. "Edward," she beckoned, her voice a haunting melody that echoed through the stillness. "It's time to remember." "Who are you?" Edward demanded, taking a step back. Charlie stood firm beside him, keeping her grip on his hand. "I am the echoes of your past, the memories you wish to forget," the woman answered, a smile chillingly sweet etched upon her lips. "I've waited long enough for you to seek me." "Why should I listen to you?" he asked, his voice rising in panic. "Because," she said softly, "ignoring the past has only made it stronger. Together, we can unveil the truth." Charlie's stance hardened. "Edward," don't ignoring her warning, he stepped closer to the figure, a surge of memories pressing against his mind like waves crashing on a shore. This woman, there was something undeniably significant about her. "Wait, you're on the clarity you've denied yourself," she interrupted his thoughts. Let me help you find the light within the darkness." "Stay away from him," Charlie shouted, pushing forward, shielding Edward again. "You're trying to manipulate him." The woman laughed, a sound that sent chills racing through Edward's body. "Manipulation is simply another tool of the shadows, Charlie. Edward needs to confront his pain, not run from it." "Confront what?" Edward retorted, feeling torn between fear and an inexplicable yearning. "What is there to confront?" "Your regrets," the woman replied, her voice a soft caress that felt both like a remedy and a poison. "You know what you did." Edward felt the swell of emotions, memories clawing their way to the surface. Betrayals, missed connections, choices unmade. Each regret became a weight, a chain he had forged himself, dragging him down. "Shut up," he shouted, desperate to drown out her voice. "You're not real." She stepped closer, almost invitingly. "Ah, but that's where you're wrong. I'm as real as your guilt, Edward. Face me, and you may find freedom." Behind him, Charlie pulled on his arm, her voice trembling now. "Edward, please don't listen to her. You'll lose yourself." "Freedom?" he echoed, the hope of what she hinted at tugging at something deep within. The very word made his heart flutter, yet fear anchored him down. "Take my hand," the figure urged, extending her unnaturally pale hand toward him. "I'll show you the way. You are stronger than your fears." The room darkened dangerously. Edward hovered on the edge between temptation and dread. His body felt frozen, heart racing furiously against his ribcage. In that moment, it became painfully clear. This was no mere specter. This was a pivotal moment, the calm before the storm, and the choice he made would shape everything. With every fiber of his being, he knew he had to decide. Was it a leap of faith or a plunge into madness? As he stood, teetering on the brink of his own soul, the shadows began to swirl back into existence, their whispers filling the air again. "You will wish you had yielded, you will wish you had yielded." An impossible choice lay before him. Could he reach for the light without falling into the depths of darkness? "Edward, don't," Charlie cried, her fear palpable, but it was too late. His heart had already started to choose. And in that pivotal moment, a new whisper shattered the fragile silence, sending shockwaves through the darkness. Remember, the truth lies within. What truth awaited him, and was he strong enough to face it? The shadows loomed larger, hungry for the choice he was about to make. The shadows thickened, taking on a life of their own, creeping closer as if eager to consume him whole. Edward felt every heartbeat emboldened by uncertainty, every silent breath laced with dread. Charlie's grip tightened, but he barely felt it. His focus narrowed to the woman, the embodiment of his past, the tangible representation of everything he regretted, everything he yearned to escape. "Edward," she called again, her voice wrapping around him, intimate yet threatening. "You know you want this. It's time to reclaim what was lost." His mind whirled. Reclaim? The thought flickered like a candle wavering in the wind. Could facing her, facing what he had lost, bring closure or deeper pain? "No!" Charlie shouted, her voice cutting through the fog, grounding him momentarily. "Don't trust her. She is playing with you." But the woman was already stepping closer, her hand still outstretched. With each inch she closed, the weight of regret pressed heavier against Edward's chest. "Tell me, what do you remember?" she whispered, her breath cold against the warmth of his skin. Memories rushed in like a tidal wave, memories he thought he had buried deep. The laughter of loved ones, whispers of promises unkept, and the sharp, biting cold of the final goodbye. I can't do this," he stammered, panic rising. The darkness behind him pulsed, eager to swallow him if he faltered. "Face your past, Edward." The woman's voice rang clear through his chaos. "You know it, I'll never leave you until you do." Every pulse in his veins screamed to run, to hide. But then a flicker of hope sparked within him, a belief that maybe, just maybe, facing it would bring relief. He clenched his jaw, inching closer despite Charlie's frantic whispers behind him. "Edward, please stay back," he shouted, not ready to let her go just yet. Not when he felt the gravity of his own choices pulling him toward this woman. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, his voice trembling. "Only the truth," she replied softly. "To accept what has been lost and what remains possible. Let go of what binds you." Each word was a siren song, echoing through his mind, teasing the edges of his soul. He hesitated, caught in a web of longing and fear. Charlie lunged forward, aiming to pull him back, but he steadied himself. "No," he growled, surprising even himself. "I need to know." The woman's expression shifted, darkening. "Then take my hand, Edward. Embrace the shadows, and I will show you what you cannot see." The corners of the room began to tremble, dimming further, shadows extending like clawed fingers to twist around him. Familiar faces flickered in the darkness, each with expressions of despair and anger. Suddenly, Charlie's voice pierced through the haze. "Edward, don't sacrifice yourself for the past. Remember, we're in this together." Fear gripped his heart, yet a daring spark ignited within him. "For once, Charlie, I need to do this for me." The woman smiled, a predatory glint hidden behind her ethereal guise. "Yes, good. Embrace your choices. You've longed for this moment." Without conscious thought, he reached for her hand. The instant their fingers touched, a jolt of energy surged through him, cracking open a reality buried beneath layers of regret. A vision exploded around him, the world swirling. Suddenly vibrant yet terrifying. He could see the past unspooling like endless threads, shadows dancing in the periphery, memories unfolding. Each flash hit him like a hammer, summoning tears he had long since refused to shed. "Edward." Charlie's screams faded into a wisp as he was enveloped in the darkness, pulled deeper into a realm where only the truth truly mattered. In that very instant, a flash of clarity broke through the chaos. A realization blazed like lightning. Perhaps he would not emerge whole again, but this was his choice. His heart raced as whispers filled the void, urging him to delve further. Unseen forces clawed at him, enveloping him as shadows rejoiced. "Welcome back," the woman breathed, the depths of her gaze now holding the weight of all his fractured pieces. But as Edward plunged deeper, he questioned, at what cost would facing the past finally set him free? With darkness wrapping around him like a tight embrace, he sensed the fight for his soul was only just beginning. The shadows laughed, giddy with anticipation for what lay ahead, and he realized none of this had prepared him for the ultimate betrayal still hidden within his memory. What truth would he uncover next, and who would pay the price for his awakening? The shadows pulsed around him, whispering secrets and sorrows, blending into a cacophony. Edward felt the familiar sting of regret raising its head, fiery and relentless. He stood at the precipice of something far greater than himself, lost within the depths of memories that had become far too vivid. "Do you remember?" The woman's voice was silk over steel, pulling him deeper into a labyrinth of past choices. Her eyes bore into him, unsettling yet poignant, like a reflection of his own soul. "Feel it all, Edward, the pain, the love, the betrayal. It's all right here." Edward shivered, the truth clawing its way up from the depths where he had confined it. He wrestled with the weight of those memories, flickering like shadows across his memory. They etched themselves into his mind. The laughter of his father, now a ghost of the past, the joyful cries of summer nights lost to time, and the harsh laughter mocking, tormenting of dreams split apart. He squeezed her hand, feeling the cold of her touch echo through his core. "Why did you come back?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Why now?" The woman smirked, a flash of something darker shimmering through her facade. "Because you've changed, Edward. You're ready to face what you once avoided. But beware, some truths are better off buried, and some memories are vicious." As if summoned, images writhed before him, terrible flashes of his past that burned brighter than the sun. He saw lost friends, trails of tears, and heart-pounding confrontations that had left scars deeper than any blade. Yet among them, another figure swirled into focus, Charlie, her spirit woven intricately within the fibers of his memories. "Let her go," he cried out, sensing the pull between the shadows and his heart. "Don't drag her into this." "Too late," the woman echoed, her voice twisting, echoing through the void. "She is already marked by your past. Every choice you've made has defined who she is now." "No!" Edward screamed, desperation surging through every pore. "I want to let you take her." At that, a surge of heat erupted within, igniting his spirit. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if taken aback by this outburst. He withdrew his hand, stepping back as memories crashed over him anew. Charlie's smile amid storms, her laughter slicing through his darkest days. He had failed her, but she had fought to remain. "Edward." Charlie's voice rang like a bell, piercing the darkness. "You have the strength. Choose to fight for us, for what we could be." An adrenaline rush cascaded through him, a rush of raw power, enough to rival the shadows. Edward clenched his fists, defiance rising. "You may have clouded my mind, but my heart is strong. I refuse to lose her." With that declaration, the darkness shivered, the shadows recoiling as if struck. They slinked back, momentarily daunted, granting him space. He took a deep breath, fueling himself with the memory of Charlie's warmth, her belief in him. "Show me," he roared, voice aflame with determination. "If I am to face the truth, let it be on my own terms." Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the woman, illuminating the swirling darkness. Edward gasped, the brightness seizing him as images danced rapidly, memories both bitter and sweet as realities twisted and tangled before opening a void of possibilities. But from that void, laughter echoed, sinister and foreboding. The shadows were not done. No, they reveled in this chaos, eager for something darker to arise. Just as clarity began to set in, the woman leaned in closer. Each choice you've made leads to unforeseen consequences, Edward. Every truth has a price, and the cost is higher than you realize. He steadied himself, heart pounding as the weight of those words settled in. Was he ready to pay it? Could he face the unshackled tide of reality? As the brilliance swelled around him, Edward felt the deep ache of something sinister lurking on the edges, an unpredictable hurt, a horrifying impersonation of love that twisted itself within his heart. The haunting promise of betrayal loomed nearby, just waiting for the moment to strike. What had he truly wished for? The past, or a fragile future veiled in shadows? And just then, the darkness stirred, whispering a name, a heart, a secret that threatened to shatter everything he thought was real. What would he uncover next that would change the course of everything? The shadows flickered menacingly before him, tucked in every corner of the church like snakes ready to pounce. Edward felt the weight of the woman's gaze piercing through him, connecting him to his past with an urgency that twisted his insides. Every truth has a price, she echoed, her voice dripping with an ominous sweetness. Enough! Edward shouted, the fire igniting in his chest. I refuse to be a pawn in your play. I won't let you drag Charlie into this darkness. He could almost feel her presence beside him, strong and unwavering, pushing him to believe in the light he fought to protect. The woman laughed, a sound that sent shivers through his bones. Consider your choices, Edward. Choosing light means facing the shadows without fear. But you will lose something precious. Charlie's voice surged through the haze, fierce as a flame. Edward, listen to your heart. You hold the power to choose. Her encouragement wrapped around him like a warm embrace. He took it to heart, the strength in her spirit feeling like a beacon amidst the chaos. No more running, he said, his own courage hardening. I will confront my past, but I will not be consumed by it. In that moment, the church pulsed with a trembling energy, shadows swirling angrily, as if to protest his defiance. They twisted and formed shapes, grotesque specters of his deepest fears, pushing hard against the light he held inside. Edward. The plea came like a whisper crashed upon his ears, flooding him with courage. He summoned each memory, every laugh, every tear shed in love and loss. He allowed the warmth of those fragments to ignite a blaze within him, radiating outward. I have faced you before. You are nothing but echoes of my own uncertainty. With a surge of determination, he unleashed that light like a dam breaking, a searing radiance that shattered the darkness. It illuminated the vast expanse of the church, the spirits entwined within the shadows recoiling in agony as the light surged closer and closer, pushing the darkness back with every heartbeat. Yes, that's it. Keep fighting, Charlie urged, her voice harmonizing with the pulsing light. And it was enough. The woman's confident expression faltered as Edward's light engulfed her. The shadows twisted, sending piercing screams echoing through the air as they dissipated into nothingness, losing their hold on whatever truth had kept them alive. Yet, even as victory washed over him, a chilling ache thrummed through the hall. Edward turned, facing the remnants of his past. They swirled together, revealing faces marked by sorrow, faces who had loved him deeply yet had been lost due to choices made long ago. It pained him, but a new realization flickered. I see you, he murmured. You're part of my story. And I need to heal what I've broken. As if sensing his acceptance, the shadows began to retreat further, withering under the warmth of his light. Edward, Charlie said softly, stepping closer, her presence radiating confidence and unwavering support. You can carry this. You'll find a way to channel it, to ensure these shadows don't haunt you again. He met her gaze, feeling the bond connecting them fortify in that moment. Together, he affirmed, a vow that resonated between them. With one final breath, he directed his light toward the swirling vortex of memories that hung in the air. You will not hold power over me anymore," he declared, thrusting his light forward. The shadows shrieked, fading into the ether until the empty church resonated with a profound silence. The air felt lighter, the weight of dread dissipating like mist trapped in sunlight. "Together," Edward repeated softly. With Charlie at his side, he stepped forward, ready to face the echoes of his past without fear. The church, once a prison, transformed into a sanctuary. "Let us go home," he whispered, intertwining his fingers with Charlie's. As they turned toward the vast exit, sunlight pierced through the cracked windows, cascading across the floor like ribbons of hope. Edward felt lighter, the burdens of regret slipping away, replaced by an optimism he thought had vanished forever. "Remember, the shadows can always come back," Charlie said, her voice steady yet warm. "But we will be ready." "Yes," Edward agreed, his heart racing with renewed purpose. "We'll carry the light within us. Together." And together, they stepped out of the church, leaving the darkness behind. But as they crossed the threshold, a soft breeze danced around them, whispering a reminder echoing through the trees a promise that shadows might linger, but love would always illuminate the path ahead. With that, the door to the church closed for the final time, sealing away the burden of his past as Edward and Charlie walked into their future. Now, dear friends, this is the moment to make your voice heard. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss out on more exclusive stories that will follow this journey. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Nothing helps us more. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. How did Edward's journey touch you? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.